News from the United Kingdom now. Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng has announced he's abandoning the controversial tax cut plan. In a tweet, he said, "We get it. We have listened." The British Chancellor said that cutting 45% tax cut for people earning over £150,000 became a distraction from the government's overriding mission to tackle the challenges facing the country. He added the government's plans were designed to build a more prosperous economy. Kwarteng says the government will focus on delivering the major parts of the growth package that include the energy price cap, cutting taxes for 30 million people and pursuing driving supply side reforms, including accelerating major infrastructure projects. For more on this story, we're now joined by WION correspondent Alex Isaac. She joins us from London. Alex, even though many say that this is really the British government responding to the mounting anger and outrage that had been expressed by ordinary people as well as many in the Conservative Party against this tax cut proposal, and many are now saying that this really is a humiliating setback for Liz Truss and the Chancellor, who've been in power for just a few days, and they're already in the line of fire over many of the economic measures.
Yeah, absolutely right. It is humiliating. It's even more humiliating as well because Liz Truss actually did a round of interviews yesterday because they are up at the Tory conference in Birmingham. She said only yesterday that there would be no changes, that nothing would happen, and that she was still on the path to fulfil all of those policies. And then this morning we hear that there is this huge turn. So, of course, the 45p tax turn is a really big deal because a lot of people have been complaining about it, saying that people over £150,000, if they're earning that much, they don't really need these cuts. And these cuts do need to come down, not just through the economic trickle, but it actually needs to help the people that are on lower and middle wages too. However, it does seem that the distraction comment is also quite relevant because they are still borrowing millions, billions of pounds to help the country to try and get through this energy crisis that we are having now and we are going to be having for the foreseeable future. And some of that billions is going towards companies that are already in huge profits just to help us cap our bills. So there is a lot more conversation to be had to exactly why are we still borrowing these billions of pounds to give this money to people that potentially don't actually require it. And maybe there's more austerity cuts are needed, where Liz Truss said that she wouldn't do that when she was in her hustings. So it'd be interesting to see how they go from here, because it seems like a lot of their own members are fighting back, and they're all together at the moment. So it's nowhere that both Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss can turn within the conference centre in Birmingham without coming up to another Conservative member who's clearly quite angry about what they're seeing that's going on the ground. And of course, the positive thing was that the sterling did rise, pound rise a bit when Kwasi Kwarteng put out that statement. It rose to where we saw it before that mini budget. However, it has dropped again, not as much as when after the mini budget, but it has dropped slightly because the Chancellor has said that he won't resign over this, and he is adamant that he will be pushing through many of those packages that you've just mentioned there. So we have to keep a real eye on what exactly is going to be happening with sterling and whether, again, the Bank of England do need to step in and raise any more inflation rates, which there are rumours abound, and no doubt that the Conservative members have also heard those as well. But the ultimate issue here is what is going to be done for people as we go towards winter. Ofgem said this morning that there's potential that water and gas won't be accessible throughout all of winter, and we may have a real problem there. So more does need to be said, and Liz Truss needs to be at the front of her party, pushing forward and make her place in history right now.
Absolutely. And in fact, the recent intervention we saw by the Bank of England was itself seen by most as an indication that Liz Truss does not seem to be in control, especially of the economy. You just mentioned there, Alex, that there was growing anger not just amongst the British public, but also amongst many Tories against this tax cut proposal, which has now been rolled back. And humiliating as it may be for the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, could this in fact be just the beginning of a series of U-turns that we are likely to see by this government, given that the energy crisis, the snowballing inflation and, all the economic challenges that the UK faces currently only seem to be snowballing by the day?
Well, Rishi Sunak said when he talks about the hustings that Liz Truss was flip-flopping, and a lot of people have used that term for her, even back then when she was trying to win that leadership contest. So it does seem that many of her policies aren't necessarily hardened and they're going to go forward. I think what is a positive that we've seen is that maybe she's trying to listen, and maybe she does have a good advisor that is going to be able to come over and say, look, actually these policies aren't going to work in the long term. There does need to be a huge shake-up within the economy within the UK, and that is clear, but potentially some of the things that she's trying to push forward aren't really the way to do it. We are struggling. There are so many issues right now. We've got the cost of living crisis. Obviously there's still the war ongoing. There are issues with gas, water, electricity. All of those things should be taking priority, and yes, we do need a fiscal shake-up, and she's not wrong there, and the Chancellor isn't wrong there, but it's just how you do it, and getting advisors on board is the best way to do it. The Bank of England and the OCM, they have met with Truss, and they did meet last week, so potentially there's also that going on in her head. I think we are likely to see some changes, especially as we head into winter. I do feel there are going to be some more handouts given after she did say no originally, but again, that adds to the borrowing, and the borrowing then it does ultimately all come back on us eventually when we have to pay it out via taxes in the future. So even though this may be a short-term win, we need some long-term goals set in there as well.
How difficult is the winter likely to be for the British people? I think that is one of the fundamental questions being asked as the Liz Truss government makes its first major U-turn. Thank you very much, Alex, for getting us those details.